Reports coming out Sunday morning that Auburn expected to lose two more interesting names as they are now expected into the portal. Ashton Daniels, Kayin Lee, what's it mean?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Quick bonus edition, dropping this on a Sunday afternoon. Kayin Lee entering the portal. We'll discuss what kind of impact that means for this Auburn defense. But let's start with Ashton Daniels because we're always going to start with the quarterback position. I think with the way the last week is gone, that Ashton Daniels entering the portal is not too surprising. Yes, differing opinions on if it's worth it or not, whatever. And again, let's have a few qualifying statements here just so we're all on the same page. First is, these are all reports they expect to enter the portal. You can't enter the portal until January 2nd. Second, if you do enter the portal, you can come back, sure. And then also there are variables here. We have limited information, and some of the information, it's not mine to share as far as dollar values. And so all of this discussion happening on a few assumptions in regards to overpayment or just the fit doesn't make sense for the, projected payment that Auburn would have for these specific players. So with Ashton Daniels, I think there's a few things you can look at here. One, wherever Ashton goes, I think they're getting a pretty good quarterback. But I don't think Ashton Daniels is the type of quarterback that in 2026 that Alex Golesh wants to roll with. I still believe all the reports and chatter about Byron Brown being a real key option for Auburn in the portal. I expect him to enter the portal when it opens in 2 weeks from now. And I also expect Deuce Knight to be a priority. And I saw a few people as soon as this Ashton report came out that he intends to enter the portal when it opens. It's pretty easy and natural to say, okay, well, what does this mean for Deuce? Is this a good sign for Deuce Knight? Do you let Ashton Daniels walk if you don't feel like you keep Deuce on the roster, especially with Jackson Arnold, obviously, being on his way out? And I don't know if they're entirely tied. I don't think the logic is bad, but is there a situation where Auburn has no quarterbacks on his roster from last year? Yeah, I don't think that's unrealistic at all. Do I think it's the most likely scenario? No, right now it sounds like, based off of everyone I've talked to, that the discussions between Auburn and Deuce Knight do seem positive. But with anything, if a player has, whether it's an agent or a family member or just someone in their life around them, you just never know. You just never know. And that's what makes this process so frustrating for college coaches and maybe for college fans as well. So Ashton, what does Ashton Daniels want? I mean, when he came to Auburn, he was expected to be the backup, and he was the backup, and then he got a shot, and then maybe he didn't expect that shot, and maybe he didn't expect the shot to go so well. Didn't win a game as a starter, but did show some promise, and I think he could be a player even in a conference like the Big 12. I think Ashton Daniels could certainly have a role and compete for a starting job at several places throughout college football based off what we saw with him in the Vanderbilt game and obviously in the Iron Bowl. I thought he played really, really well after those first few drives. Took him a minute to get going, but once he got going, I thought he looked pretty good. So I'm glad that Auburn preserved his red shirt. I think that was certainly the right thing to do. And now you say, okay, great. Best of luck, Ashton. If you don't want to be here and, we're assuming it's Ashton choosing to leave. It could have been mutual. It could have been Golesh. I don't know. Once again, there's a lot of assumptions and variables that we're having to kind of dance around with these discussions. But regardless, reports coming out that Ashton expected to enter the portal on January 2nd. Does it help your case with Deuce Knight? I don't think so, unless you're going to say, hey, all of the money that we are paying Ashton, we're going to give to Deuce. Is that enough? Is that what this coaching staff is willing to do? I'm not so sure. Because look, we've all seen the reports that have come out and just general assumptions that, okay, most of the people on the roster last year were overpaid. And you've seen that kind of come out with several, I'm going to say key guys that entered the portal. Jay Crawford, Malik Blockton, Kayin Lee, who we'll get to in a moment. And I don't think the list will stop there as I record this at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, right after church. I think the list is going to keep going, but is Ashton Daniels a guy that was realistically going to help you on the field win football games in 2026? I don't think so. Is your quarterback room better with him in it? Yes. But once again, like, is it worth it? Is it worth having that if you're going to bring in a transfer quarterback and retain Deuce Knight? Do you need a third quarterback to be that second backup? In this day and age, like, once again, we don't know what he was being paid and what he was offered, but does that make sense on this roster in 2026? I think the argument to that is no. Or I think the answer to that is no, excuse me. So that's my thought on it. I hope he goes somewhere and is exceptional, and we'll check on our guy Daryl Dapprich next time he's on the show. The Kayin Lee side of this, I think it's a different scenario, and it lines up with what we just said. We've mentioned it before on the show, the suck tax, Auburn having to pay players more because they were bad. This coaching staff is not going to pay that suck tax. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Rocket Money finds subscriptions you forgot you were paying and helps you clean them up quickly. And also seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easy to understand where your money is going. Look, I mean, we've all felt like you look at the account and just money disappears, right? Especially this time of year when you're doing all this Christmas shopping, or maybe some of your annual memberships and subscriptions kind of carry over for the year. Rocket Money helps get you clarity and track every dollar and stay in control of your finances. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Live betting happening, a ton of it happening right now as NFL games are going on as I record this. But of course, NBA, college basketball, the rest of the college football season, you can live bet every step of the way with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to download the app, or obviously in your phone's app store, and check them out today. FanDuel, that is America's #1 sports book. Want to spend a second talking about Kayin Lee. Reports coming out that Kayin Lee is expected to enter the portal on January 2nd. Reports came out, and we talked about it here on Locked On Auburn, that Kayin Lee appeared to be a priority, and obviously he became more important when Jay Crawford, reports came out that Jay Crawford intends to enter the portal on January 2nd. And I think Kayin Lee's luster, like, I think he needs to be a #2 corner, if I'm being 100% honest with you. And I don't know what this staff's assessment of Kayin Lee was, but it's been reported elsewhere and discussed here that he seemed to be a priority. But all you need is one person in your life that can influence one of these kids, and they're going to go test the market. That's just the nature of what this is. We can all talk about how it impacts college football and, your thoughts on the big picture of college football. All that's fine, but that is the reality that we live in. Is Kayin Lee worth paying as a #1 corner? I don't think so. I think he needs to be a #2 corner in this DJ Durkin system. And could he have been that with Rashawn Pleasant on the roster? I don't think so. I think Rashawn's in a similar boat. I think Rashawn makes sense as a guy who can be a #2 corner and help you in the return game. I think that makes a ton of sense. We'll see what happens with Rashawn Pleasant. I also think the staff really likes Blake Woodby. I think Blake Woodby at this point in his career, I think Blake Woodby's upside is arguably higher than Kayin Lee. If not, I think it's really, really close. And I think both of them have pretty high floors. And then we've heard nothing but great things about Donovan Starr. Haven't seen him play as much as we would like, obviously. But what could he look like in this system going into his second year in that role? So this one I'm not shaken up about. This one I think makes sense. And look, Kayin's one of those players. I mean, there were a lot of these defensive guys that we kind of heard about them flirting with the portal in previous windows. And then the previous regime, it sounded like they just caved over and over and over again with keeping all of these players. And look, they won the offseason. Last staff, they were all about winning the offseason. And sadly, those are really the only wins during the Hugh Freeze era we were able to hold on to. When you talk about recruiting wins and the flips and keeping guys out of the portal or letting guys go into the portal and you go and get them back. Talk about Amaris, another defensive player that kind of could be put on this list. And I think this staff isn't going to do that. In fact, Alex Golesh posted a quote on his Instagram story that I thought was interesting. And let me find it. It's a quote from Admiral Grace Hopper. And the quote is just, the most dangerous phrase in our language is, we've always done it this way. And so that was posted, I think, like minutes before, maybe during these announcements that happened Sunday morning. I think that's telling. And that's probably something he's running into a lot. And that's exactly why we were excited about Alex Golesh. When we learned about him, was like, oh, you need a guy to change your culture at Auburn, which is a losing culture. The numbers speak for themselves. Sadly, we all hate it. We all wanted to get better. Alex Golesh is not going to be the kind of guy who puts up with, well, we've always done it this way. Because always doing it this way is overpaying for players that don't deliver a winning season. Do I hate that certain guys are gone? Yes. Do I even think some guys are worth overpaying for? Yeah, I think there's arguments for some of these guys, but that's not my call. And the guys who know every detail about what's happening is Alex Golesh and the staff. And they say, yeah, we're not doing that. If you want to play at Auburn, one of the best brands in college football, if you want to play here, then play here. It's not like we're like asking you to do it for free. We're taking care of our student athletes that want to be here. And look, don't get me wrong. I want every athlete that plays at Auburn, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, women's basketball, gymnastics, softball, I don't care, whatever sport it is, I want them to be the highest paid players in their markets. I don't know how realistic that is, but that's what I want. And that's what Auburn fans should want. We want everything about this to be the most attractive place in college athletics. And sadly, it's not right now because we've lost. In the previous regime, look, they tried to kick the can down the road and say, okay, maybe if we win, we don't have to overpay for as many guys. They just didn't win. And this new staff comes in, and like, wow, you're getting paid what? They were paying you what? Yeah, we can't do that. And so of course you're going to see guys leave. And you have to assume that these guys that were threatening to leave or did leave and then either came back or chose to stay, that they got raises that probably wasn't good for the football program because it didn't turn to wins. So is Kayin part of that? Possibly. Amaris, Jay Crawford, Malik Blockton, all these defensive guys that have entered the portal. Some on offense too. Don't get me wrong. Some on offense too. I just think the defensive guys had more leverage because their production was higher. And I think they would have probably gotten a better chance of getting the amount that they wanted on the free market versus the offensive guys. And we'll see if some of these guys do come back. If they test the mark and they're like, oh, okay, maybe this really was the best offer. We'll see. I'm also hesitant if you want those guys. If this is the culture you're trying to build and somebody's like, well, I want this or I'm going to leave. You don't give them that. They realize that it's not out there on the open market and they choose to come back. I'm not entirely sure like that's best for culture either, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. So all in all, Ashton Daniels, Kayin Lee, both expected to enter the portal when it opens on January 2nd. I wish them both nothing but success wherever they end up. And if it is at Auburn, they come back or don't even enter the portal at all, great. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we will see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.